Welcome to Module 1 of the Biodiesel Learning Toolkit. This module is made possible by the Biofuels for Schools program. Biofuels for Schools began in 2010 through a Together Green Fellowship and through the support of the Kentucky Division of Compliance Assistance. Together Green is a conservation alliance of Toyota and Audubon. The Alliance supports community-focused projects that engage local residents in conserving land, water, and energy. The Division of Compliance Assistance is a part of the Kentucky Department for Environmental Protection. DCA exists to provide services that increase environmental knowledge and encourage positive behavioral changes. DCA does this to improve regulatory compliance, achieve exceptional performance, and enhance the quality of Kentucky's environment and communities. Module 1 covers 3 basic learning objectives. At the end of the module, you should be able to define what biodiesel is, identify the various biodiesel feedstocks, and finally, identify how to assess the environmental impacts of biodiesel. At the end of the module, you will receive a certificate of completion. We will now look at Learning Objective 1, What is biodiesel? In scientific and chemical terms, biodiesel is a long-chain monoalkyl ester of fats and oils. It is not a raw oil or fat. For example, there are some vehicle modification kits that can convert cars to run on pure vegetable oil. This is not biodiesel. Other renewable products, such as ethanol, are not biodiesel. Biodiesel must meet ASTM standards for quality. In common terms, biodiesel is the result of a chemical reaction using an oil or fat raw material. It is important to be able to properly identify biodiesel at the fuel station. Pure biodiesel is 100% biodiesel and is identified by the symbol B100, where B stands for biodiesel and the 100 means 100%. Biodiesel blends are mixtures of both regular petroleum-based diesel and biodiesel. For example, B20 means that the fuel is a mixture of 80% traditional diesel and 20% pure biodiesel. Many people think biodiesel is a new concept, when in fact biodiesel can be traced back to the 1850s. In the 1800s, Rudolf Diesel, who is considered to be the father of the modern diesel engine, foreshadowed the importance that vegetable oil-based fuels will play today. In a 1912 speech, Diesel said, "The use of vegetable oils for engine fuels may seem insignificant today, but such oils may become, in the course of time, as important as petroleum and the coal tar products of the present time." During World War II and the oil crisis of the 1970s, there was a renewed but brief interest in using vegetable oils to fuel diesel engines. But true conversion and use of biodiesel would not be seen again until the 1980s. Because the process of making biodiesel can be scaled either to large production processing plants or to that of a homeowner, there are often quality concerns and myths regarding biodiesel as a legitimate fuel. Biodiesel is a registered fuel with the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. For biodiesel to be used safely in vehicles, it should meet ASTM quality standards. Anyone producing biodiesel for sale or use in on-road vehicles should be registered with the Kentucky Department of Revenue, and if selling the biodiesel, producers must also register with EPA as an alternative fuels producer. In addition, the process of making biodiesel produces air emissions and waste products. Biodiesel production operations are also required to obtain all necessary permits from the Department for Environmental Protection and ensure that their operations are meeting all environmental regulatory standards. Finally, making biodiesel involves the use of a variety of chemicals. Anyone engaged in biodiesel production should be aware of the safety hazards and be equipped to deal with any safety issues during the production process. The Biofuels for Schools program has developed a safety poster for use in the classroom environment. In Objective 2, we will discuss the various feedstocks used to make biodiesel. Traditional biodiesel feedstocks include the following: soybean, corn, canola, cottonseed, sunflower, beef tallow, pork lard, and used cooking oils. These are also called first-generation biodiesel feedstocks. Most first-generation biodiesel is considered to be derived from edible products. From this slide, you can see that these feedstocks are known as second-generation biodiesel feedstocks. Second-generation biodiesel is typically defined as being derived from inedible feedstocks such as algae. In Objective 3, we will discuss the various ways to assess the environmental and societal impacts of biodiesel production and use. There are 4 key ways to analyze biodiesel production and use as it relates to society and the environment. 1 is through air pollution emissions assessment. 2, evaluating the life cycle carbon emissions. 3, calculating the net energy return. And 4, assessing agricultural impacts. There are both on-road and off-road mobile sources of air pollution. On-road means cars and trucks that we drive every day. Off-road could mean construction equipment, lawn care, or recreational sources such as boats or all-terrain vehicles. These mobile sources emit air pollution as the result of combustion of the fuel. Particulate matter is the term for solid or liquid particles found in the air. Some particles are large or dark enough to be seen as soot or smoke, but fine particulate matter is tiny and is generally not visible to the naked eye. Mobile source particulate emissions consist mainly of these very tiny particles, also known as PM2.5, because they are less than 2.5 microns in diameter. Although you cannot see or smell carbon monoxide, this poisonous gas is a major air pollutant in many American cities. Carbon monoxide forms when carbon in fuel doesn't burn completely or incomplete combustion. The main source of carbon monoxide in our air is vehicle emissions. As much as 95% of the carbon monoxide in typical U.S. cities comes from mobile sources. Nitrogen oxides form when fuel burns at high temperatures, such as in motor vehicles. Mobile sources are responsible for more than half of all nitrogen oxide emissions in the United States. Both on-road and non-road mobile sources are major nitrogen oxide polluters. Hydrocarbons are a precursor to ground-level ozone, a serious air pollutant in cities across the United States. They are also known as volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. A key component of smog, ground-level ozone, is formed by reactions involving hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides in the presence of sunlight. Hydrocarbon emissions result from incomplete fuel combustion and from fuel evaporation. Today's cars are equipped with emission controls designed to reduce both exhaust and evaporative hydrocarbon emissions. As you can see with the chart above, when biodiesel is used instead of regular diesel, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and hydrocarbon emissions decrease as the blend of biodiesel increases. The only exception is that biodiesel does produce a small rise in nitrogen oxide emissions. Life cycle assessment, or LCA, is defined as a technique to assess environmental impacts associated with all the stages of a product's life from cradle to grave. For example, from raw material extraction through materials processing, manufacturing, distribution, use, repair and maintenance, and finally disposal or recycling. The 2007 Energy Independence and Security Act called for increased biofuel production. The Act also set the standard for renewable fuels to achieve at least a 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions relative to fossil fuels. Greenhouse gas emissions from renewable fuels are primarily due to feedstock production, conversion of the feedstock to fuel, and fuel use. Greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. Some of these are methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and carbon monoxide. Fossil fuels are fuels containing carbon, such as coal, oil, and gas. These fuels were formed over millions of years through the decay, burial, and compaction of rotting vegetation on land and of marine organisms on the sea floor. As you can see from the chart, waste grease biodiesel has a life cycle assessment showing an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Also, many non-edible based biofuels have a significantly larger reduction potential than those derived from food-based crops. Net energy ratio, or NER, is the ratio of the energy in the fuel versus the energy needed to produce the fuel. In general, most biodiesel is considered to have a NER of greater than 1. There is wide variation on how to calculate and define the energy used to produce the biodiesel. Therefore, there is wide variation among NER estimates for biodiesel. As you can see from the chart above, there is a large variety in the NER estimates. Co-products are those products that result from biodiesel production, but are not used as an energy source, such as soybean meal used for animal feed. It is also known that many second-generation biodiesels from sugarcane or algae have a significantly higher NER due to increases in production efficiencies. The final evaluation tool is one that is agricultural based, including land use and basic economics. In many studies, first-generation biodiesels were linked to higher food prices in that many of the feedstocks were edible crops. Consequently, when demand for those crops increased and supply remained the same, the price of the crops increased. This price increase ultimately transferred to the consumer at the grocery stores. This is the law of supply and demand. As you can see, D1 represents the demand curve prior to biofuel entering the market. This is the demand for the edible crop. D2 represents the demand curve for the crop after biofuels are introduced into the marketplace. Given the same amount of crop production, the higher demand curve D2 produces a higher equilibrium price and quantity. The next way to evaluate agricultural impacts are shifts in land use. While many biodiesel feedstocks do not change land use patterns, such as those made from waste products, some recent studies demonstrate that when crop-based biofuels contribute to deforestation or other damaging land conversions, the pollution benefits can be compromised or even eliminated, potentially producing a net increase in pollution. Therefore, a final way of measuring a biodiesel feedstock could be based on its ability to compromise an ecosystem or its biodiversity reduction potential.